Last week, Manchester City came to Stamford Bridge to crush Chelsea and close the gap on Arsenal with a game to spare. But this wasn't about the team's performance, as Manchester City weren't playing like they had at the start of the season. Their slow, predictable build-up play was a more incisive and aggressive approach. Instead, their system was sharper and more aggressive, a narrower shape, more runs in behind the opposition's defense, quicker decision-making in the final third, and a player profile that was peaking at just the right time. A midfielder from the local academy who had become a fullback now entering the penalty box like a striker. A creator who not only passed but also disrupted the defensive structure. A winger who no longer waited on the flanks but attacked space with purpose. A backline that could finally defend in transition. And behind it all, a system that looked more complete than it had just a few months ago. Meanwhile, Arsenal were heading into the most important week of their season, reaching the Champions League semi-finals and the title race intensifying. And if you've watched Guardiola's teams for long enough, you already know how this story usually ends. But this time, something feels different. This is why Arteta should be worried, and this is the part that should really make Arsenal fans nervous. So what's going on? Is it just City's luck at the right time? Is it momentum? I'll summarize all those answers in this video. Guardiola's teams spend the first half of every season essentially developing a new pattern. They absorb new ideas, change player roles, and quietly iron out small gaps in the system without the opposition noticing. And then, just as the calendar turns to spring, football's most important games don't get any more complicated. They become more clinical. Pep Guardiola himself gave us a glimpse of this after the Chelsea game. He said City's second half was driven by a more aggressive mentality, driven by a few small changes in strategy. Then he said something that deserves even more attention, a real sense of confidence building for big games. City had beaten Arsenal in the Carabao Cup final, knocked out Liverpool in the FA Cup, and then went to Stamford Bridge and made it look almost effortless after halftime. Now, let's be honest, this isn't the same City we saw back in October. At times, in the first half of the season, they didn't look like title favorites at all. There were moments where they looked lackluster, giving the ball away too easily, too vulnerable to losing midfield battles, and not cutting edge enough in the final third. After the defeat to Aston Villa, analysts pointed out that City were clearly losing the battle in midfield, and Rodri's absence was felt both defensively and in the team's overall balance. Something was clearly missing. Even Pep himself admitted as recently as mid-March that his team lacked aggression in the final pass and creativity in the final third in many games this season. When Pep says something like that, it's a sign of something. He's usually the kind of person who willingly points out his team's shortcomings publicly. The biggest tactical clue to City's change in formation was a narrower 4-3-2-1, with both wingers dropping inside and the fullbacks being asked to play wide. On paper, it sounds technical. In practice, it was brilliant. It created more movement in central areas, with sharper combinations around the penalty area, and opened up spaces on the flanks for players to run forward. That's why City looked less predictable than they had earlier in the season. The ball reached dangerous areas quicker, decisions in the final third were sharper, and the pressure when they lost possession was quicker. Chelsea felt all of this in the second half. After a fairly disappointing opening 45 minutes, City came out swinging and scored 3 goals in just 17 minutes. Nico O'Reilly, Mark Guéhi, and then Jeremy Doku, with Brian Cherki setting up the first 2 goals. Doku, never one to underestimate his performance, explained exactly what had changed. City adjusted their pressing slightly and added more runs in behind the opposition defense, opening up space across the pitch. It may sound simple, but it's actually a crucial piece of information about who this City team is now, because this version of Guardiola's team doesn't try to win by suffocating opponents with possession for 90 minutes. Instead, they're structured, positional, and intelligent, but now they're more direct, more aggressive, more willing to go straight into space when the game opens up. Against Chelsea, you saw exactly what that looked like in the actual game. When City turned the second half into a masterclass, O'Reilly didn't score from a lucky ball challenge or rebound, but rather he struck the moment. That goal started Chelsea's downfall, and O'Reilly himself explained it beautifully. He said that as a kid, he always played in midfield and always arrived late to score. So when he now does the same from left back at the highest level, it's not a coincidence, it's instinct, or it's just who he's always been. Guardiola is very particular about where he wants Cherki to operate. High up the pitch, close to goal, exactly where his talents can do the most damage. And when Pep describes a player that way, it's worth paying attention. He said Cherki could accelerate, then decelerate, then accelerate again. And he had the vision to always find that extra pass that the opponent didn't even see. Think about what that means for a defensive structure trying to maintain its shape. Most players move at one pace and make predictable decisions. Cherki does neither. He's the type of player who makes organized defenders look disorganized, because he always does something slightly different from what they're prepared for. Against Chelsea, he provided the assist for O'Reilly's opening goal and created Guehi's second after sliding past a crowd of players at the edge of the box. This is what Guardiola's teams have been missing in their previous title-winning campaigns. Not just a creative player, but also a disruptive player, or someone who breaks up the pattern of play rather than adapting to it. And then there's Doku, the man who transforms City's wing play into something that truly makes opposing defenders nervous. Earlier in the season, City's wing play seemed somewhat predictable, receiving the ball face-to-face with a defender, then passing it, or playing it back. Now there's something different about it. There's more urgency, more speed, more ruthlessness when it comes to decision-making speed. Doku explained the change himself after the Chelsea game. City adjusted their pressing slightly and started making more runs in behind, opening up space or giving him space to do what he usually does. He proved himself. He robbed the ball from an opponent and scored City's third goal himself. This isn't a winger getting lucky. This is a winger who is now part of the defensive structure, part of the pressing scheme, and part of the direct attacking threat. Defenders can no longer just sit back and wait, because Doku won't let the opposition build play.